Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Extra Credits Book Club podcast. I am Dekker. This is Nightmother. Today we're finishing a very lovely book. It's been such a nice book to us.
Yeah. So much has happened even in like this group of chapters that it feels like we read a whole other book.
Yeah, true. It kind of does. But we started on chapter 43.
Mhm.
And last time it seemed like the last few chapters were just kind of winding down after everybody's kind of dealing with Longen being killed.
Yeah, there's like a lot of hasty rearrangings of rank and
Yeah.
everyone is kind of it's kind of like what happened when my whole work team got restructured, but like there was no deaths. People were just like
Right.
demoted and then they left. But um where everybody's they have a new job in title, but they're still kind of doing the role of their old job, and everybody's treating them like they're in their old roles still, and like it's not super clear who's supposed to be doing what
Yeah.
in what instance. Like Hilo's the pillar, but he's also still the horn. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
really know how to
He's
not be the horn.
still acting like the Horn, even though he can't be doing that anymore. Like, he just doesn't have the time. His
Yeah.
attentions are being pulled in 18 different. It's, suddenly you're in charge of a project you didn't want to be in charge of, and you're like, I don't know what I have to do. This is
Yeah, and
tough.
he doesn't know how to be like a hands-off kind of guy. Like he has to be there with the people all the time.
Yeah. But chapter 43 starts. I don't remember.
It's past midnight. Shay is returning to the call estate from the weatherman's office.
Right.
She's like back in the estate, feeling really nostalgic for like the apartment and the job offer that she barely had. Like
Right.
she's kind of counting her, like, attempt at a life outside of the family as, like, she did these things for herself. She got these things herself, and that's good enough. She doesn't need to actually have, like, lived in the apartment for longer than a couple of days or, like, actually done a job outside of the family's expectations for her. It's like,
Yeah.
just knowing she could do it, perfect.
She really likes patting herself on the back for the things she didn't do yet.
Yeah, and she's going back to the house, and Wen is in the house with her. Um, and she asks Shay if she wants to have a cup of tea with her. And Shay is like kind of like resentful about Wen's presence in the house. And I
Yeah.
think it's because Shay's kind of like a pick me, and doesn't like being around other women. Or maybe it's not that she's a pick me, but maybe it's just that she likes being the only powerful woman around.
I kind of got the feeling that there was a tiniest bit of jealousy.
Mhm. I think she even says that too, that she's just
She's
a
just
little envious.
jealous of, like, someone who got Elo's attention that isn't her.
Mhm.
It's very weird. Like, that whole, when she was talking about all that stuff she didn't like about Wen, I'm like, ugh, Rose, what are you saying?
I always feel so bad for Wen too because the narrator is always like, Wen wasn't pretty, but she had an elegant way of moving. But everything they describe about her is describing a beautiful person. But it's
Yeah.
like she was not beautiful. It's like, shut up. Justice for
And
Wen. She's pretty. Like, let her live.
Elo also doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would pick an Uggo,
Yeah. I think they're always like, she's not like traditionally beautiful, but it's like,
whatever that means.
yeah, what does that mean? But Wen's like, please, like, I really need another woman to come and see how I'm redecorating this house because she's living in the Horns house with her brothers. She's like, I have so much time on my hands. Like, I've been putting a ton of effort into this renovation. Like,
Yeah.
I just need someone to see it. And she's like commenting to Shay about how she always notices that Shay comes home late, stays up for a long time anyways, doing paperwork. She's like, just come for one cup of tea. And Shay's surprised that Wen is so observant over her behaviors, and she's like, maybe I'll go.
Yeah. And like Shay is unnecessarily a bitch in a
Yeah,
lot
she's
of this.
yeah. Like anytime someone asks to spend time with her, she's like, at first, hard no, and then has to be kind of like convinced to do it, which I kind of understand. But she's like super like sh- sh- she's taking like a long time to really warm up to the idea of being in the same room as Wen.
Mm-hmm. Which is weird. Like I can understand not wanting to be like, I'm really put out by this invitation. I have other things I could probably be doing. But the fact that she's like, I don't like being in the same room as this person for so long is like, ew. Why don't you climb down out of your ivory tower, Your Highness?
Yeah, I know. And like she kind of uses the internal excuse of like, oh, the family is like cursed, they're bad luck to be around Wen's a stone eye, bad luck to be around stone eyes. But that's like the easy answer, and it's not like the true answer.
Yeah.
But we don't even really know what the true answer is.
I think she's just being rude for the sake of it.
Yeah, and then she goes over to the house with Wen and sees like this great job she's done with renovating. And she's like, oh my God, she must have so much time on her hands. And then she remembers that Hilo asked her to find Wen a job. And she's like, oh, fuck, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
And then she thinks the only reason Wen has invited her over is to talk about like getting her a job. So she kind of brings it up as Shay's making her this tea that she's like prepared very thoughtfully. She's like, it's like an Aspenian brandy that she pours in it. She's
Mm-hmm.
like, thought maybe when you were overseas, you might have picked up a taste for Aspenian drinks. So like, tell me what you think of this. And Shay's like, we only had cheap beer over there. Like, it's just such a bitch for no reason.
Yeah.
But doesn't say any of it. Like she's just thinking it.
She also like clearly has done her research in preparing for this conversation in
Mhm.
such a way that when when
I was writing her name as Wei in my notes for some reason, but it's Wen.
yeah, when
Mm.
she asks for the job, she's like, let me be a spy for you. And Shay's like, don't be ridiculous. I'm like, are you kidding? She's just displayed all the characteristics of a perfect one.
Yeah. And she says to Shay, like, the way she frames it, she makes Shay say it. Like, she doesn't even suggest that she would be a spy. She's like, how am I, a stone eye, going to be the best use to you, specifically, the weatherman of this clan, knowing these things? Like, she sets it up so perfectly. And Shay's like, being a white rat. Like, and Wen's like,
Yeah,
well,
perfect.
so put me to it.
Then it's settled.
Yeah, Shay's like hesitant because it means she has to go behind Hilo's back.
Right.
But Wen is like, did you become Weatherman to help the clan or as a favor to your brother? And she talks about how Hilo was never meant to be the pillar. He's like not politically minded or farsighted enough to do it. And shows that just like she really pays attention to people's character and knows their strengths. And like
Yeah.
Shay's like, I need to think on this some more because if Hilo ever finds out, like he'll never forgive me, which is fair. Like there's added complications when you work with your family.
True. There was something she says like towards the end when she's like, "Well, I gotta go," and she kind of like remarked to herself that she thought it was weird because Wen has clearly thought about Shay more than she has ever thought about her.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, because you only ever think about you.
Yeah, like, she could say that about anybody and it would be true.
Yeah,
Anybody who's even given Shay a passing thought has thought about Shay more than she's thought about them.
yeah. Like, look at Andon. She was like, oh, sorry, I didn't come see you for like a month.
Poor boy.
I was busy thinking about me. And he's like,
Yeah.
it's fine, I guess.
Thinking about me and how I was gonna give PR answers for all the things I'm not doing that nobody is asking me about.
Yeah. Uh, chapter 44 is old Barrow, who, like, what he does in this chapter doesn't matter. Because he takes a ferry to some, like, tourist island, and then just hangs out there for a couple months. But he stews. And this is when it kind of occurred to me that Barrow is almost a perfect villain.
Mhm.
Because he blames everybody else for any one of his problems. He blames Hilo for stopping him stealing. He blames his cronies that he hung out with for being incompetent, so he couldn't really move up the ladder. He blames uh Moot
Mhm.
for lying to him about getting the jade he was promised, which he wasn't promised anything.
No.
They were like, we'll see.
Mhm. He
Uh
really read between the lines that were not really lines.
yeah, and like he's super driven by this revenge. He'll literally stop at nothing. Because he's like this whole time he's planning, he's like, ooh, I'm gonna have to come up with some way to get more jade. And he's also not smart enough to have the self-preservation portion of himself to go, this insane vendetta you're on is not worth it. You're gonna be killed.
He doesn't even seem to factor in that, like, people might be trying to kill him. Like, back when he thought he was gonna have this, like, hero's welcome for what he thought he had done in killing Lon, which he didn't, but he was like, "I definitely did that." And was like, "No, fuck you, like, get out of here." Like, and he's like, "What do
And
you mean, get out of here?"
he he's also completely unmanageable. Like nobody can tell him anything. He's gonna do what he wants to do. And that all those things make him like the most dangerous person in the book.
Yeah, because he has no, like, moral compass, he has no allegiances to anybody.
Yeah.
Like, all he wants is to get as much jade as quickly as possible,
Which
by any means necessary.
he eventually, after I think it was like 2 or 3 months, he was on this dumb island. He
Mhm.
makes his way back to Moot's shop and finds out that it's been boarded up because he's been killed.
Yeah.
Some homeless guy's like, "Oh, you ain't heard? He's been killed." And he's like, "Yeah, whatever, old man." He like breaks in and goes down into like just to ransack. He's like, he's probably got some good shit in here. Stupid
Mhm.
dead bitch. And goes into that trapdoor that Moot had stuck him in earlier. And he starts like ransacking the place and he finds a box full of shine. And he was like, jackpot, baby. And I was like, what the fuck is shine gonna do for you, you jadeless bitch?
Yeah, he's like he finds like boxes and boxes of shine. It's
Yeah.
like a lifetime supply. He's like, I've got to get it out of here before something.
Like,
And then but then like what's the next step? It's like that old meme that's like get shine and
question
then the
mark,
next
question mark,
steps are
question mark.
question marks. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, shine will do him no good. Because he's
No.
got no jade like a punk bitch.
Mhm.
But then I think he meets Moot's son outside,
Mhm.
and that's the end.
Yeah, he basically decides to like recruit Moot's son as his new
Yeah,
little
his new
henchman.
idiot crony.
Yeah, and Moot really wants to kill Tar because he thinks Tar killed his dad. Um, and but he's like, but it's really hard to kill a really strong green bone. And Barrow's like, don't worry about it. I've done it.
I
Just
forgot about
stick with
that, yeah.
me, kid. I'm an expert.
No,
And
it's
he's like,
not.
well,
It's
we need,
super easy. I did it.
yeah, if I can, anyone can. He's like, what we need is some jade, and I know where to get it. And that's the end of the chapter.
But he's giving himself way too much credit.
Yeah, I really hope he gets his comeuppance.
Chapter 45 gave me big Yakuza energy. Because it's
Mm-hmm.
like treating a treaty negotiation like a business deal. Or
Yeah.
like a acquisitions and merger meeting. Like, how can we make this deal work?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess it's Hilo showing up at the negotiations, and there's three penitents there who are like heaven's spies. So that's why no violence can happen there.
Yeah, you don't want to
And
make the gods mad.
he gets into the big boardroom where this is all happening, and he can feel Ait Mata, the pillar of the mountain, enter the building because he can feel her jade aura. And they kind of have this like auric stare down
Mm-hmm.
as she's coming into the room. And Hilo is like really aware that he is at more of a disadvantage by being in this room than Ait is because Gaunt is an incredible horn and he's out there on the streets being able to do whatever while he's kind of stuck in the room, which is
Yeah.
kind of just like testament to the fact that he doesn't really trust Ken yet as the horn because he
Yeah.
is still the horn like in his heart.
Well, I got the impression that the concern was slightly warranted because
Mhm.
every time we hear about the war happening, No Peak is getting rolled over like they're standing still.
Yeah.
So
And mhm.
is Ken just like giving shitty orders, or are they spreading the? Also, the problem is that like we never see the war happening. It's always like, well, there's this thing going. Like it's really poor weather that they just kind of have to deal with.
Yeah, it's kind of just like a frame of mind. Like there are just it's wartime now, so these things have to happen. But the day to day like doesn't seem to have changed that much besides like little street skirmishes breaking out
Yeah,
often and like territory being gained and lost within the city. But we don't really hear too much about it because there's no like battles going on. It's all just very small numbers of like fingers and fists from each clan just kind of like duking it out on the streets.
yeah, and subsequently getting fucked up.
Yeah, No
Like,
Peak is getting absolutely clobbered. Like
yeah,
it's
getting mopped
it's
up.
yeah, like every time we hear about it, like you said, it's just they've lost more and more people. More people are dying. They're like, "Oh, we really need those kids to graduate so we can use them in the war."
Yeah, it seems very weird because every time they talk about it, they're like, "Oh, we lost more territory." And I'm like, "Well, what are you guys doing? You guys just standing there on the other side of the street watching them take your businesses? What are you doing?" It shouldn't be
Yeah.
like not every fighter in the Mountain Clan can be better than every fighter you've got. It's just not statistically possible. You don't have Sardukar.
I know. It is very strange because like we hear about all the preparations and work that Ite and the Mountain have done over the last few years with like jade smuggling, but all of that is happening like offshore. Like it's not really
Yeah,
part of what's going on between the clans. Like No Peak is this very revered old money powerful clan, and all of a sudden they're just like absolutely getting destroyed. And all their lantern men's like loyalties are really like
Tenuous.
very easily swayed, which is bizarre to me because like how many generations have they had these relationships with, and like
It's very
their
weird.
families are so like well integrated into the clans too. Like there, anytime we hear about a lantern man kind of being hesitant about whether or not they were able to pay more tribute, it's like, oh, like my second cousin is a luck bringer, my parents are like fingers, like they're just
Yeah.
their families are so part of that ecosystem that the idea that they would just like opt out immediately is crazy to me.
Yeah. Which kind of goes into, although in this chapter they also like they lay out proposals. It's really kind of boring because
Yeah.
Aitmata is like, here are all the reasons why we're upset. And it's just like a list of businesses that they kind of took a little bit.
Well, it's years worth of petty grievances,
Yeah.
but petty grievances that the mountain is responsible for ultimately. Because they have this one example of like construction on a casino that was sabotaged by No Peak for a few years. But the reason that they were sabotaging it is because the mountain stole the contract from No Peak in the first place. And like every example is kind of like that. And Hilo is listening to these examples being read off, and he's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And they're like making these little minor concessions here and there throughout the whole day, but they're not making any headway on the armpit, which is like key territory where all the fights are happening. And like the other places in town where all like the most brutal battlegrounds are.
Yeah.
And Hilo is reading this speech that Shay's prepared for him, and he's reading it out and like skipping over pieces and only really reading the parts that appeal to him. He's like, does she really expect me to read all of it?
And it was all like he is not happy to be in this position. He doesn't like being in this boardroom. He doesn't like that when Aitmata was like, here is the 7 sins of the No Peak clan, and just started reading off her dumbass list. All the other people in the room were like, this is, okay. He's like, oh my god. And if I go against it, that's just gonna sound like I'm being contrary. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think he just storms out of the room eventually. He's like, I said what I'm gonna say. Peace out.
I think that happens a bit. I don't think he storms out yet, but because it's like the second day, he's like on a break with Shay and they're having a conversation. But he's definitely super frustrated and he's like not feeling really pleased about being there. He's like, this is such bullshit. And she's like, remember, we are here to show the Lantern Men and the council that we made an effort at peace. She
Right.
tells him that she's planning to like reveal the early results of the Jade audit on the last day so that any sympathies that the Mountain Clan will have are basically just out. And then they kind of like lead into this idea that this war is way more about revenge on their brother's murder. It's like the Mountain Clan has been smuggling Jade for who knows how long and
Yeah.
working outside of like the agreements that we made as a culture. But they're leaving, I think, on the second day, and Hilo's kind of reflecting a little on how he knows that Ida's a better pillar than he is. But he's like watching Shay like fall into her role with such like alacrity, and he's like, I knew it. She's falling into line. I knew she was fooling herself. Like he has a little moment of like vindication. But Tar picks him up in a nondescript kind of clan standard issue vehicle. And he's obviously got some good news that he wants to tell Hilo because Hilo can tell by the way his aura is like, I don't know, doing an I have something to tell you
Yeah, whatever.
thing,
However that
whatever that
looks.
means. But Hilo's asking about this fist that was injured and he's in surgery. He finds out he dies. Hilo like punches the roof of the car and
What a
like
bro.
Yeah, he's doing everything he can not to give Tar the satisfaction of, like, being able to tell him his good news. Like, he really stalls for a long time, and then he's like, "Ugh, fine, like, what? What is it?" And then Tar tells Hilo what he knows. We don't find out what that is, and Hilo is, like, really affected by whatever news he hears from Tar, and he's like, "Fuck, tomorrow's gonna be a lot different," but he has to think about what it is, and we don't find out, and then
Yeah,
the chapter unceremoniously ends.
right. And then in 46, I believe Councilman something or other.
It's like Son? Chancellor Son? Let me find out. It
This
wasn't clear in the audio.
this chancellor calls him to his office. Like, it's like, hey, Helogen, would you please come to my office? And he's like, yeah, fine, all right.
Yeah, it's Son Tamarho?
Oh, that's right.
Son.
Tomorrow. It sounds like tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah, it does.
Um, he goes to the office, and this guy's like, this is one of the guys who kind of gave him the cold shoulder at his brother's funeral
Mhm.
and delivered like a shitty tribute like envelope to him, like it was the bare minimum. And he's like, I'll remember this. So he's in this meeting with this tomorrow guy, and he's like, hey man, look, it's the lantern men are getting real nervous about this war. You got to put an end to it, or else who knows what might happen. You know, we could leave, maybe not pay you any tributes or anything like that, because maybe we don't want to fucking deal with it anymore. And he was just like, excuse me, dude. And it turns out that Hilo's form of diplomacy is to grab people by the shirt collar and be like, let me tell you the score, dickhead.
Mhm.
Because he essentially reads him the riot act. He's like, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to go and tell all your little lanternman friends that if they don't buck up, then we're all going to be fucked. Like, it's hard now, but imagine how hard it's going to be when the mountain's burning down your fucking shops. So don't tell me about how it's hard. Take off, you little weasel. And the guy's like, he... There's a lot more that he had in his little quiver of ammunition. Like, he mentioned that everybody had family members in the clan. And he's like, if if they're that ready to leave, they're just gonna abandon their family. So, yeah, right. Please.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
was
like
kind of
it's
a
actually
short chapter.
yeah, and it was actually like Hilo just fucking kills it in this interaction. Like,
Yeah.
and it made me be like, holy shit, like he's actually really like the whole narrative around Hilo is like, oh, he's made to be a horn. He was only ever meant to be the horn. But as a wartime pillar, he's kind of perfect because
Yeah.
he doesn't really let diplomacy get in the way of like accomplishing what has to happen to ensure the clan's survival. And anybody who's kind of like mincing around the idea that, oh, we can pinch resources here and like hold these like idle threats over you. He's like, okay, great. Well, then you're going to die and everyone you love is going to end up being subject to the mountain's rule. Like, is that what you want?
Yeah. And he takes this big dick energy rampage that he's on, and he like bursts into the arbitration, and he's like, all right, motherfuckers, here's the score. This bitch over here, she's been stealing jade for years. Like, he drops the trump card that they were gonna save for the last day of this negotiation. Like, Mike drops it, and then Shay is losing her mind.
Yeah, she's so upset. She's like, what the fuck?
Everybody's shocked. And Aitmata is like, ooh, like Yosemite Sam almost got that wabbit. Or Elmer Fudd, I guess. Almost got the wabbit. He's like, ooh. She's pissed.
Yeah,
But
but she
also
kind of
not.
keeps control.
Yeah, she's pissed, but in a way that almost kind of suggests that she's just mad that he brought it up. Like, not mad that she was caught, but she was like, ugh, why would you bring that up? That's old.
Yeah, she keeps being like, why would we want to take the jade when we openly control it? And he was like, what a great question. And then he like slaps this cassette tape down on the table. That's, I guess, anything, whatever Tara was able to get out of Tembem as he was like slowly torturing
Yeah,
him to
bending him in
death.
half.
Yeah, and like talks about how he's Ike's been planting weeds in his yard, like Moot and Tembem, and the fact that they're supplying shine and jade to a bunch of people they use in their ranks. And then Ike's like, how do you come up with such wild stories? And then he slaps down the tape and he's like, listen to this, everyone.
Yeah.
And then he storms out and Shay follows suit.
And then Shay gets a phone call from the mountain weatherman where he's like, Ike wants to meet.
Mhm.
That's when the chapter ends.
Yeah, this chapter was fucking wild. It was just like the whole chapter was basically just like one conversation.
Yeah.
But it's Ait and Shay at the like divine temple. And Ait shows up and she's like, listen, I didn't plan for Lon's death. It wasn't my doing. And Shay calls her out. She's like, okay, what about the fucking guns we found? What
Yeah.
about all the bullet holes? What about the fact that Lon's car was followed by a taxi who, like, full of people who clearly knew what his schedule was? And then it's like, okay, it was me. I'm responsible. But like, I didn't whisper his name. Like, I only meant to fuck with him a little bit. And Shay is so not having any of this. And Ike's trying to convince her that like going to war with the mountain would be super unwise, really futile. And she hoped that by fucking with Lon and kind of making him see that they were willing to like do shit like that, I guess, that he would decide that it was time to pull the plug and like enter into peace negotiations,
Yeah.
which
It was
feels like a weird plan.
very flimsy. But
Yeah,
her like huge supervillain plan that she reveals is also really flimsy.
it is.
But like Shay keeps trying to do this thing where she reasons with her, where she's like, "Why would you do this?" And Aitmat is just like, "What do you mean? That's what you do in
Yeah.
scenarios like this." And like, clearly the woman's a sociopath. Like she killed her family, so yeah, of course. But
Yeah.
she's got that like ruthless business mindset where it's like the only way forward is the most ruthless way forward. So she's like, that's the only way to do business. Like, what do you mean? Why did you do that?
Mhm. Right, because Shay's like, "Oh, it was Hilo that you meant to kill." And Shay, I mean, it's like, yeah, 100%, because with Hilo dead, Lon wouldn't want to have to like navigate a war with an inexperienced Horn and then quietly let the mountain take over. But then Ait's kind of like she's really just like put off by the fact that Shay brought up the KJA Jade audit. She's like, why would you do that? Like, that's so unnecessary. Forces the press to look into Greenbone issues. Like, do we need that? Do we need those things? Think about the tourism. It's gonna be really hit from this. And Shay brings up Doru. She's like, he's been covering for you this whole time, like been breaking all the alliance agreements. And she talks about how Doru is like this far-sighted man, realized neither of Kalzen's grandsons could ever replace him. And she tries to proposition Shay by being like, you're a well-traveled woman. Like, think about what's happening outside of Kekon. Like, there's tensions between Aspenia and Eguton. The world's dividing into camps. Everybody's coveting Jade. Um, and like reveals her supervillain plan of basically creating and producing SN1 with the Egotanians so that she can also sell them Jade and they can use it against Aspenia because the Aspenians are also creating SN1 so that their soldiers can use Jade. And she really wants to like get everybody using Jade and using Shine so that they control the supply of both Shine and Jade, I think.
Yeah.
And then being able to like kind of control the flow of who's getting it and who's not.
Right.
And holding it over both governments.
I believe her plan was to get everybody using Jade, everybody using Shine, so that at the most opportune moment, they can cut off Shine from everybody, so they all go into the itches. And I was like,
Right.
okay, but this plan hinges. Like, the linchpin of this plan is to know the exact moment when to turn off Shine.
Well, and to assume that you're the only person who knows how to create and manufacture Shine.
Right.
Like the second, it's just like what happened in fucking Six of Crows when they're all trying to uncover how to make that stupid Speci Grisha drug
Oh,
that
God.
turns everyone into gods, which I've forgotten the name of it because my brain can't hold on to
Jurda
the
Parem.
information from. Oh, yeah. It's the Shine is the Jurda Parem of this series. But like
Yeah.
of Ego, like there's no way that Aspenia and Egoton are not going to start creating their own versions of it. Like,
Yeah. It's absurd to think that they won't, like, if you were like, hey, we'll sell you this dope drug that allows you to use Jade, and they're like, great, thanks. They'll pay for one case and use half of it to reverse engineer it so they can make their own.
totally. Yeah. And that's never even mentioned,
No,
which is
I don't.
weird to
I don't
me.
know that she thought of that, but that's 100% what'll happen.
Yeah. She's like, we'll have market power. We'll be able to defend the country like we've always done.
Yeah.
And then she tells Shay that she sees like her younger self in her. She's
Oh
like, your
yeah.
brother's a foolish man child driven by pride and bloodlust. She's like, come usurp him, like end the war, and then come work for me. You could be the weatherman of all of Kekon. And Shay's like, no, thank you.
Yeah. This plan sounds dumb.
Yeah, and then Ait's like pissed. She's like, "What the fuck? What do you mean?" Like she laid out her whole plan with the absolute certainty that Shay would get on side. Once she knew the plan, it was like her idea of like the vision of the clans coming together under the mountains rule. It was like she just needed to say it in order for people to understand and be like, "Oh, of course, this is the only solution."
Right.
But Shay hears it and she's like, "No, like I'm not going to kill my brother. Like we don't get along sometimes, but that doesn't mean I want him dead."
It's like, what? What do you mean? Like, I killed my entire family because I wanted something. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is huge. Why wouldn't you do that first chance you got?
Yeah.
Because she,
I gives
like,
her this.
I has the weird, like, sociopath aspect of, like, not understand. Like, she can't wrap her head around the fact that everyone doesn't think exactly like she does.
Mhm.
So when she's like, "No, I'm not gonna kill my brother," she's like, "What? What do you mean?
Of course you are.
Do you want this or not?" Like, no, not really.
I get
Kind
so
of
mad.
don't.
She's like, "I'm not gonna kill you right now, but you forced my hand. I hate it when people force my hand. But I'm gonna make you wait until you see your brother's Jade being ripped from his mangled body, knowing you could have prevented all of this, and then I'll kill you."
Oh.
She's like, "Okay, cool. See you then.
Bye.
Bye."
In the next chapter,
Plot twist.
yeah, that everybody saw coming. We find out, and I forget what leads up to this, but I think everybody's just kind of like hanging out in Lon's study.
Mhm.
and they find out that Doru escaped. Like, that crotchety ancient fuck, Randa, was like, here, take all my jade. I don't need it anymore. And he just gave it to Doru, and Doru went sicko mode and, like, killed 4 people on his way out. And Shay's like, oh my god, how could this have happened? Who said that we
It's
should spare his life? Oh my god, we should throw them in jail.
it's so insane that it never even crossed their minds that their granda would give Doru some of his jade, because they thought like he was pretty senile at this point, and he is, like, he's definitely got dementia, but he's also kind of milking it a little bit,
Yeah.
and like giving Doru his jade to set Doru free, like he says, was like the most on brand thing he could have ever done.
Yeah.
And
And
he's like, Hilo, I know you've been taking my jade from me.
they all just kind of sit around and go, how did this happen? And I'm like, well, A, you didn't kill that fucking asshole. Should have killed both of them. Just
Yeah.
wait until Grandpa's asleep and put a pillow over his fucking mouth. Solve it.
Yeah,
He's
he's
done
proven to be
nothing
the
but
kind of person.
Sorry, go ahead.
He doesn't know how to fucking quit. He's the type of person who retires from a job and then keeps coming back on for like special little projects that he's given
Yeah.
over and over again until he dies. And like he's just, no one can be the pillar after him.
Right. No one can do it right. But they like quickly move on. They're like, well, I guess we better look for him. Anyway, what else is going on? And
Yeah.
Shay gives him the the rundown about how poorly the war's going. He's like, well, it's not looking good.
Hmm.
And he's like, okay, give it to me straight, Doc. How long can we stay? Like, how long can we last? And she's like, about 6 months. He's like, what? And she says it's because tourism is down, which makes it seem like they went all in on investing in tourism. And I was like, well, there's your problem. They didn't diversify their portfolio when clearly you'd want to invest in like areas of business that would thrive in wartime, like grocery stores, camping
Yeah.
stores.
Resources. Like anything that's not just tourism.
Yeah.
Like
Like tourism is
don't
big business, sure. But what
like what
happens
if a
during monsoon season, bro? You just out cash?
yeah, what happens if a pandemic happens and no one can go on cruise ships anymore?
Oof. Absolutely blown out.
But it's crazy. It's like all of a sudden they just have no more money. And it's like they sure they had one stream of income was like the jade exports, but everything's on hold because the mining is on hold until the audit is complete. But it's insane to me that they would not have
Yep.
other streams of income
This
for being like a well-established family. I was really confused during this
Yeah,
part.
this chapter made me want to go like, all right, let me take a look at the books because something's wrong here. Let me go
Yeah.
over them. We'll do a full audit and we'll see where the problem is because there's clearly something catastrophically wrong with these books.
Well, like, and how much did Doru have to do with that? That's what I'd like to know too.
I don't.
Or is it just that they were really not investing wisely?
It could be. It could be that Dora was just like, yes, this is a great investment, and then tanks it.
Yeah, because they find out the mountain clan is doing great with their business. Like wartime is very profitable.
Yeah,
If
because
you've
they
invested
invested in things
correctly.
like grocery stores and supply
Yeah.
shops.
Hmm.
And they're just like, ah, why didn't we think of that? But that's
And
kind of
then
the whole chapter. They're just kind of like, hey, this isn't going great.
Yeah. Shay at one point tells Hilo about the overseas shine contracts that the mountain have with Igutan. And Hilo's like, how do you know that? And Shay responds with like this old adage. That's the word. She's like, the weatherman reads the clouds. And Hilo almost collapses. He like loves that so much. He's like,
Yeah.
my sister using weatherman phrases, speaking the corporate jargon. Like, love that for her. But yeah, basically Shay's like, we need money and we need to win the street war. If I can get us the money and you and Ken can win us the street war, we can last through the year.
Yeah.
And then Hilo starts, there's a number of moments in these chapters where Hilo just starts getting really like he retreats into his mind's eye and thinks about what would happen if he dies.
Yeah.
Like, and he does it a number of times, but he does it here where he's like, what would happen if I died and there's no one to replace me? And then he kind of just spirals into this like darkest timeline daydream.
Yeah, it gets really old. So
Yeah.
I can understand the first time, but he does it like 3 times, continuing on.
Yeah. And it's like, fucking, there's no time for this. Move on.
The next chapter is Secret Agent Wen.
Yeah, she's on a special mission to an island called Yumon, I think.
Something like
And
that.
it seems like a lot of Espenians live there.
Yeah, who are English, by the way.
Yeah, but like the accent that the audiobook narrator did was so bad.
Like, it's truly one of the worst. However, like he makes them sound like the British who colonialized India.
Yeah, he does. But like he does such a bad accent.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
At its best, it's barely hanging on. At its worst, he full on trips down the stairs. Like it just drifts in and out. But it's just ooh.
Like, did he get input on that accent from anybody, or did he just like decide Espenians are just like British at the height of its empire when the sun is never setting, and that's that. But also, it's not that great.
I imagine that they told him that he should do English, and they're like, "Can you do that?" And he's like, "Yes." And they heard it, and no one was like, most of the book is done, so do we get like someone new or make him No, you know what? We don't have the time.
I feel like that's such a recurring theme with audiobook narrators when they bring out their accent they're the least confident with, like really far into the book.
Yeah.
So that there's like nothing that can happen. It was like in 3 Body Problem with that council and all of the different accents that this guy was doing. Like
that one should have someone should have just pulled the emergency brake and been like, whoa, let's record this whole chapter over again and don't do whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah.
But the Espenians are like, Wen is going to this island and she's dressed like a mourner and she's got a little urn and she's gonna go, she tells like the customs office she's gonna go chuck her grandma's ashes on this island, and they're like, all right, good luck. And she gets to like the Espenian embassy or something like that. It's just like a military office.
Yeah,
and she's
I think it's a naval base. Maybe?
Yeah, that's where it is. And she's like, I would like to speak to an Espenian, please. And they're like,
any of them do.
Okay. And they bring her in, and they keep referring to her as the emissary, which I can't hear without thinking about Captain Benjamin Sisko.
Mm-hmm.
But they bring her in and they're like, what jolly tip cheerio, what's this? Because
you can like
accent is
You can
that
hear
bad?
their mustaches like
Yeah.
with like in the wind. And like they're shaking jowls.
I say, good man. And she's like, well, okay, what do you want, lady? Why are you here? Why do you have an urn? And she just kind of like dumps it out, and it's full of jade. And they're like, by
Yeah.
Jove! Is that genuine?
Like that's basically verbatim what they say.
And like, it is. And then they just kind of like decide, another guy's like, she mentioned a phrase that our old contact, Shay, whatever her full ass name is, she
Shaven
used to
Sun.
say that. So
Yeah.
this is clearly a genuine asset. And then that's kind of it.
Well, what I really loved about this chapter was how they're like when Wen says the code phrase the cormorant can still fish. They're like reflecting on it, like the cormorant can still fish.
Yeah.
And then they remember how Shay was like a very effective local informant for them for many years, which just really seals the idea that she was like feeding state secrets to the Espenians. And the way that they're reflecting on it, they're like, yeah, there's so much that like we were able to do and know because of what she told us
Yeah.
specifically that we would have never found out
They were
otherwise.
essentially like, it was like turning on a tap.
Yeah.
It just came out.
But they're marveling over this jade. They're like, oh, it's like $90,000 of jade. And then
actually $100 million worth of jade.
Well, there was like a 90,000 number in there, I think, too. It was a different currency that they said.
Yeah, but it was like $100 million in Kekonese money. And then like some lower number in Hispanian espadolars.
Yeah. He's like, how much are we missing out on here with these if we're not getting involved with these affairs?
Yeah. And she's essentially like, well, it's not great. Real bad news over there. And that's kind of where the chapter ends. Like, we don't... There's no real recounting of information in this book, thank God. Like, characters don't say the same shit over and over. Like, the audience has heard it once, therefore no one speaks of it again. Which drives me nuts in books when even though we, the reader, have the information, other characters tell new characters that information as if we have never heard it. And it's like, you don't have to. You can just say, they tell them everything.
Yes.
It's very annoying.
That's one thing that Sarah J. Maas is really guilty of.
Ugh.
Or she'll be like giving a whole character's personal history through a conversation that is like tantamount to one person standing up and giving a PowerPoint presentation on their life.
Oh, the classic, like, oh, you're that girl whose parents died. Yes, it was a terrible night. Our house burned down. And in the fire, my dad tried to save us, but he tripped. A log fell on him and he died.
Yeah.
My sister almost made it out, but somehow fire also got her too. I don't know, it's hazy. I was a child.
Yeah. and then we'll like continue into like their adolescence and how like fire has always followed them everywhere and how they still wake up from nightmares from buildings on fire, and that's why if I see a candle I have a catatonic panic attack.
I was bullied in school for my fear of fire. In chapter 50, Hilo, he goes to see, because they find out that I don't remember his name, but it was Andon's little crush, his dad.
Yeah.
Had his head cut off.
Yeah.
And like mailed,
sent in a vegetable crate.
Sent to Hilo. So he goes to this guy's house to be like, hey, your husband's dead. And he's like my note for this chapter was like, I don't care about this kid or his shitty dad.
I don't feel bad for him or his family. This kid's a dick, and his
Yeah.
dad was more of a dick. Like, I'm glad he's dead. I don't feel bad at all.
Yeah.
But it's like this whole chapter is basically just him reflecting on how he became friends with Ken and Tar.
Yeah, kind of. Because it's
Like, there's this
essentially just
whole
like him
reverie
going,
about
ah,
it.
yes, I remember, because as you recall, we've said it many times that Ken and Tar are from a disgraced family. And when I was in the academy, they too were in the academy, and I saw them getting beating up one day. And I said, stop. And everyone said no. So I said, okay, then beat me up instead. So they did. No, it wasn't. It was, I'll fight him instead. Like, everybody get out of the
Yeah.
way. Me and Ken are gonna duke it out mano y mano. And
Well,
then
he got
he,
Tar too. It was like he 2v1, like Ken and Tar 2v1
yeah,
Hilo,
and then
and
he just
he
ended
got
up,
the shit kicked out of
yeah,
him.
he ended up forcing everyone in the crowd to watch this super awkward, like the kind of fight where you're just like, oh, this isn't, guys, stop. Like,
Yeah,
you're
not
just gonna hurt yourselves. Like, you're gonna go in the hospital if you keep this up.
and we're all gonna get in trouble, please. Like, because they're at school when this happens. And I think, is this when we find out like a bit more information about why Ken and Tara's family are kind of disgraced? Or was that back when Shay and Wen were together? Because there's like, we hadn't really found out why they were disgraced, but it
I
was like because there's some like shady dealings between their mother who ran away with a guy from the Mountain Clan and then like eventually came back after he was like cheating on her maybe and then she had oh no he was no she was cheating on him and
right.
her Mountain Clan boyfriend killed the guy who he thought Wen's mom was cheating on him with, but then she gave birth to Wen, so everybody thinks Wen is a bastard, and that's why she's a stone eye.
Right. I remember this because I remember thinking like, this is really convoluted and I'm not going to listen to it. Because it's so much information that doesn't matter.
But I like the tea. I like to know why people are shunned from society.
I suppose. Uh, but like after his reverie about how him and Ken and Tar became buddies, uh, he finds that like they go back. They get news that someone else has been hurt, and they Hilo gets led into a room and some dude had his arms cut off to
Yeah,
like the shoulder,
and
and
they've been
he's
like
just like, "Oh
cauterized.
man, just kill me, man." And I was like, "Yeah, please."
Yeah,
Like,
he wants to die so bad, and like he was only left alive to give Hilo a message, which
yeah,
sucks.
which really just amounted to like, I'm upset and I'm gonna come for you, bro.
Yeah, come. It's like he's gonna give the No Peak clan until the end of the year to surrender.
Yeah,
And then if he does, he'll give Hilo a death of consequence. If he refuses, Gaunt is gonna keep sending him the heads of his buddies in the mail and then do worse to Shay and Andon
yeah,
after Hilo is dead or something. And
and
but Hilo talks the guy out of like wanting to die. He's like, give it a year. Still wanting to die in a year? I'll do it for you.
yeah, which I thought was weird. It's like, okay, if he lost one arm, sure, but he's missing both of them
But
to
this
the
is also
shoulder.
like a magical world where they probably have like pretty dope prosthetics.
Maybe. Never been mentioned other than Hilo saying, "Don't worry, prosthetics are pretty good now." I was like,
Yeah.
okay. But
Maybe you can get like Jade prosthetics.
What, just like Jade arms?
Yeah. That's
That'd
what
be
I would.
pretty cool.
I'd be like, Hilo, give me arms made of jade, and then I'll live for the next year. And if
Fucking
not, deals off.
60-pound arms. But Hilo gets like a rundown of how the war's going, and the outlook is not good.
No.
To the point
It's
where I wrote in my notes, they're really letting Gaunt just kind of like roll through. Like he
Mhm.
doesn't seem to stop for anything. There is no resistance. He just takes territory. And I was like,
Baffling
what is
stuff, really.
happening? And like the lantern men are like giving up left and right. And one of my notes is being a pillar is hard when the pillars before you did nothing to keep themselves in power.
No kidding. Like, what the fuck was everybody doing?
It's like the
Like,
same vibe as inheriting inheriting a shop from your parents, and then when you look at the books, you realize that your parents spent all of the business's money on other dumb bullshit like a new car, and you're like, oh my god, how is this place still standing?
on like really expensive billboard advertising, but like in places that didn't matter geographically, so no one saw it.
Yeah.
But Hilo starts getting like really mind's eye retreaty again here and starts thinking again about what would happen if he dies and how if they're losing that badly, he'll take Gaunt up on his offer and he tells Ken, don't avenge me if I die, like give Wen a good life. And Ken is so fucking pissed. He's like, why like how could you ask me that? Like there's no
Yeah, how
fucking
dare
way
you?
I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
uh and then we get an interlude, the last one, the final one.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Mm-hmm.
story of the Kekonese Moses.
Yeah.
Because all of these gods and mythical stories in these interludes are vaguely similar to actual Bible stories.
He's
This
kind of
one,
like an Achilles too, in a way.
yeah, little Moses, little Achilles, because
Yeah.
he Achilles in the sense that he can't be beaten, and Moses in the sense that he was tired of seeing his people suffer, so he went to the gods and said, "Please help me out."
Send me
And they're
back.
like, "Okay, we're gonna give you the dopest powers you done ever seen. Good luck, amigo."
Yeah, he is like he's descended from the gods. So I guess he's kind of more like a Hercules in a way because he's like got godlike ancestry and he like is slain in battle against his mortal enemy, given his place in heaven, and then he sees his men fighting and dying and being conquered and his wife planning to throw herself into the sea and he
Yeah,
panics and he's like send me back in, like I need
yeah.
another
Put me
attempt
in,
at this.
coach.
I'll give my place in heaven up for this, like, somebody else can have it. And
Put
so
me
he gets
back
sent
in.
back. He kills his mortal enemy when he least expects it, and then his enemy's spirit takes his place in heaven, and he's forced to roam the earth as an exiled spirit for all of eternity afterwards. And it ends up, like, forming this green bone saying, like, "Pray to Jenshu, but be like Baijin," I think is his name.
Yeah, whatever that
The
means.
Yeah.
Uh, the next chapter. Uh, I don't remember what happens in it, but I know I was frustrated with Hilo because my notes are, "Why are you planning on losing? This is a soy boy attitude." And then he just kind of like gives up. Like they're planning on giving up.
Well, it seems like it, yeah, because like we're back kind of seeing the world through Shay's perspective. She and Hilo have been up all night talking outside in the garden about their plan of action.
Yeah.
And Shay's thinking to herself, like, we don't know what they were talking about, but Shay's like, in 48 hours, like, I might be the short lived pillar of a clan in its death throes. and like her plan would have to involve like making sure everybody's set up for a good life, and then like creating a transition of power to the Mountain Clan to secure like a an honorable death for herself. And
Right.
so like I think we're being led to believe that Hilo is going to go meet Gaunt in battle for a death of consequence.
Right.
Cuz he seems to think that like 50-50 he's going to die. But Hilo correctly guesses during this interaction that I met with Shay to try to get her on side to kill Hilo. And Shay's like, "Were you having me followed?" And then Hilo's like, "No, no, like that's just what I would do if I was her." And Shay's like, "Weren't you worried that like I would defect?" He's like, "If I was such a bad brother that you would want to kill me and go to another clan, like there's no point in me being alive."
Yeah, no kidding.
And Shay's like, "Jesus, that's dramatic," but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
Like if the person who you trust the most is willing to murder you and like betray your entire family, it's like, well, what's the point?
Yeah, stick a fork in me, then I'm done.
Yeah, but we get more information about Lon's death. Like Shay hasn't actually ever been given the full details about why and how Lon died. Like she, for all she knows, he was murdered by the mountain and whatever in like whatever way that happened with the fucking guns and shit.
Yeah.
But he tells or Hilo tells Shay that he had an autopsy done on Lon and found like a crazy amount of shine in his blood and how weak he was and injured from the fight he'd had, and gives her the full context. And um Shay's like, "Oh my god, it was an accident." And Hilo's like, "No, no, no, it was no accident. Like this the mountain's doing, basically. Like no
100%
matter what
murder.
happened." Yeah. But she's like, "Oh my god, you misled me so that I'd come back to the family." He's like, "No. You did that by yourself. I'm
Yeah.
really grateful you did, but don't try and say that like I manipulated you into coming back."
Is that the whole chapter?
Mhm.
These batches are fairly short. Like the next one is Hilo and Wen getting married. It's a super shotgun wedding because he is under the impression he's gonna die tomorrow, or like in the next week or so. So he's like, well, I better get my affairs in order. And that involves marrying a woman who will be a widow real quick.
It's very somber and like depressing.
And there's a interaction with Grand Da. And I was like,
An
ugh.
almost interaction.
Yeah, but I was like, man, I wish they would quit treating this guy like he's family still. He's done nothing but fuck them over. Like, he's the
Just
whole
kill him.
reason they're in this situation. And they're still like, you okay? You want your
Yeah.
soup? Alright. Oh, okay, Grandpa. Okay, you're gonna go back to your room now. Like, they keep treating him like he's just, oh, you know, things aren't the way they used to be. And it's like, no, he's actively working against you. On
Yeah.
purpose.
He's proven it at every opportunity that like he can't be trusted
Yeah.
with any resource or any connection. Like he will betray them.
And then they let him outside once every few weeks or like take him somewhere and he's just a horrific asshole to everyone.
Yeah.
Like in the next chapter, um like Andon's at the dinner table and called Sen is just like, oh, your mom's gross and I hated her. She's a fucking crazy witch.
Andon is so upset. There's a there's so many moments where like it's just classic Andon in this whole scene because it's like New Year's Day or something and they're having a big holiday meal, and Andon gets like basically like verbally abused by Call Sen, and he's like, "Oh my god, my presence here has made everything worse. I feel terrible.
Yeah.
This is all my fault."
I was like, please. Not all about you, buddy. Also, it's funny to think that when they first introduced Andon, you're like, oh, this kid's gonna, like, he's gonna graduate and he's gonna be the next big swinging dick of
Mhm.
this family. But as the story goes on, he gets worse and worse. Like, he just becomes more and more of the version that he was originally. Like, he just sinks more and more into his sad boy persona as time goes on. It's like, man, buck up, man. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, like everywhere he shows up, he thinks he's made everything worse. He takes on everybody's emotions. Like if someone's upset, he's like, it's got to be because of something I did
It's
or
because I'm a
how I
bastard.
disrespected them. Yeah, like I don't belong here. Like he is doing everything he can to isolate himself from feeling loved by his family,
Yeah.
basically.
And Hilo, because this is like a post-wedding dinner party or something like that, and
Mhm.
Hilo is doing that thing that parents do when they know they're going to get a divorce, but they haven't announced it yet, so they're still pretending to be like they're still pretending everything's fine. He's like, "Come on, everybody, eat. What's the matter? Hey, these things are good. Oh, wow, we're having so much fun, huh?" Even though he knows like he's going to go off and die the next day.
Mhm. And no one's having a nice time. And then they finish their meal and Shay comes up to Andon and she's like, "I was wrong about not listening to you back then." And it's like, "Yeah,
It's okay. It was
thank
my fault
you."
for not speaking up. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god. Andon, please, grow a backbone. And Hilo turns up and he's like, get out of the way, Shay. Andon, I need to talk to you. I have a
Well, she like prefaces it. She's like, "I'm sorry that Hilo has asked you to do something, but it's our best chance of surviving." And we're like, "What the fuck do you mean Hilo's asked you to do something?"
right. And that's when Hilo just like shoves her out of the way, like, get out of the way. Andon,
Mhm.
I need you to do something for me. It's very important. And that's when the chapter ends. And I was like, oh my god. Don't make this boy die for you, bro.
I know. Well, they go into the training room and it's like Andon is like, "Oh, this is the last place I saw Lon alive."
Oh,
And
right.
he takes his like no peak greenbone oaths um at this point. And but what I was appreciating about these chapters of like not being told a plan but knowing one exists, but like it was just such a stark contrast from Lee Bardugo being like it's not a situation of being like, oh, Kaz like has told everybody a plan, like everybody's got a part of the plan. Oh, just kidding. Like there's a whole secret plan nobody knows about until we need like a special thing to get us out of this really dire situation. But like Kaz is so brilliant. Like, don't worry, he'll get you out of this. And it's probably because he can swallow like 15 pounds of miscellaneous items that
Yeah.
you can,
Keeps it
just use whenever you need. And
keeps it
like
in his second stomach.
this builds up tension so much more elegantly than fucking
Well,
the Six of Crows duology.
there's a difference between having your characters like telling the reader there is a plan. Trust me, the book, that there is one. And then like none of the other characters know it. And
Yeah.
then there's having a plan and the book saying, "Trust me, there is a plan. See, look, they're going to go talk about it and practice it right now. But trust me, you'll love it when you see it."
Yeah.
Six of Crows didn't do any of that. They were just like, at the moment the plan is activated, they're like, aha, the plan is in effect. Which is terrible, Leah Bardugo. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Uh, what's the next? Oh, yeah, the next chapter is the plan in effect. Kind of. Uh,
Mhm.
Andon drives Hilo to this meeting place for the trial of consequence. And he's like, hey man, look, when we get there, stay in the car and then only be 20 feet behind me. No more, no less. And he's like, okay. And they get there, and Hilo goes out, and he's doing his, like, chest thumping thing. He's like, I'm here, bro. I'm here to do what you told me, and I have some assurances I need before I do this thing. And Gaunt's just like, yeah, okay, what? And I think he tells him, like, leave everybody else alone, like, once I'm done, let everybody who wants to leave. That kind of thing.
And they set up Andon's role to be like, he's there to take Hilo's intact body with all of his jade home to his family once he's dead. Guarantee their and that, like, Hilo's intact jade-filled body will, like, guarantee No Peak's surrender to the Mountain Clan. But if that doesn't happen, No Peak has full reign to just continue fighting until the last. And he's like, we know the Mountain Clan doesn't want that. So kind of like his dead body is the insurance.
Yeah. And then Hilo does the Kiryu thing where he just rips off his shirt in one swipe.
Yeah.
It's very dope.
Yeah.
But it's not his whole shirt. He just kind of like rips it open to show off his dope jade that he's got embedded in his body. But I like to think he ripped off his shirt in one swoop.
Yeah. That's my headcanon also.
And then they... Like, he tries to get Gaunt to duel him. And Gaunt's like, you know that's not how this works. Nice try. And he's like, okay, fine. And Hilo absolutely fucks up like 10 dudes.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting about these fight scenes is that we find out what the tools are for the first time, like what they look like, and also what the actual, like, functions of fighting with, like, a green bone with other capital techniques actually entail. Like, we've never been told until now that a talon knife is like double-sided, 4 inches. It's the weapon of street fighters. Like, everybody who grows up on the streets uses them, and a moonblade is like the traditional green bone weapon. Or at least I don't think we've been told that before.
The way they describe the talon knife makes it sound like a crampet. That one where you put like your finger through the loop at the end and you hold it and you can like cut throats and hook into joints.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that would have saved me a lot of trouble in the imagination station, buddy.
Well, yeah, and like we'd never really been told what steel is until now, until we're seeing this fight happen through Andon's perspective. And it turns out steel is like your defense. Like, if you have really good steel, people can't slice through your skin. I did not pick up on that until this fight.
Yeah, you can just like deflect it. Like out.
Yeah.
Don't.
I thought it just meant you were like strong. I didn't know what it meant.
But the fight, like, Hilo takes out like 10 dudes before Gaunt is like, oh my god, alright, that's enough. This is gonna take forever at this rate. So he's like, I'll fight him. Which is, like, he got baited so easy.
Well, he's gonna go and kill him. He's like, you've earned your warrior's death. Like, he doesn't think Hilo's gonna attack him at all. He's just coming in to finish the job because Hilo was like, I want you to be the person who kills me at the end of it.
Right. But Hilo decides, no, I'm not going down without a fight.
Yeah.
And they start duking it out. And, like, the first time in the book, I think we've had an actual, like, fight scene described.
Yeah.
And, like, Hilo does some sick-ass wrestling moves on him and shit. And eventually he gets him, like, Gaunt gets him on the ground and starts pummeling him. And Hilo's starting to flag. And that's when he goes, Andon! Now! Which is so corny.
It is really corny.
And Andon runs, and this is when this happened in the book, I'm like, that's the plan?
I know.
But basically, Andon runs over and, like, reaches down Hilo's shirt and pulls out all of the jade that they had surgically removed the night before and put into, like, a strip of, like, you know those, puka shell bracelets? That's what I imagined.
Yeah, pretty much.
But he, like, pulls it out of his shirt and then just kind of, like, wraps it around his hand and goes fucking sicko mode.
Yeah.
Andon, like, his eyes, they don't really glow, but, like, in my
They
mind,
do,
like,
kind of.
green fire started coming off him. His eyes fucking glow. He just points at dudes and they die.
It's it's
Full blown,
insane.
like sicko mode is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, there's really no other way. He goes like into a full power coma, and like he gets to the point where he can like see Gaunt's aura as something tangible, and like
Yeah,
comes up on Jade like no one has ever come up on before. Because if we remember correctly, like when he had one little extra piece that was like the size of a thumbnail given to him at the pre-trials, it was like him kind of microdosing on mushrooms. He was like, oh,
yeah,
the rain feels nice. Oh, the colors are so bright now. Like just noticing things more, and
yeah.
Hilo's like, I don't feel anything when I get new Jade. And
Oh, I
he
forgot. There was the point where Gaunt, as he was about to kill Hilo, Gaunt said, "Be like Baijen," and
right.
Hilo did like he had his own little Aslan moment where he said, "Do not like essentially do not sipe the deep magics to me, which I was there when they were written."
Yeah.
I was like, "Really? Wow, okay."
Like very cool, Hilo.
But I'm
Um,
glad he got at least one, because the Jesus line got at least one cool line in that whole series of books.
that is true. Um, but like Andon is like looking, he was like, if he feels like he's burst out of the confines of his body, he's
Yeah,
everywhere and nowhere. He's crouched over his cousin. He's looking down on himself and gone from above. He's inside everybody around them. And then he starts like laughing to himself about how his time perception is so like out of control now that Gaunt looks like he's moving in slow motion.
yeah,
And then he like goes to Gaunt's aura basically and starts pushing on it. And Gaunt is like, what the fuck? And Andon manages to like break through a couple of like layers of Gaunt's steel with his like legendary channeling ability.
yeah,
Until Gaunt manages to kind of put his steel back in place, but it's enough of a distraction so that Hilo can like get his get Gaunt's, I think, talon knife from him and stab him in the side with it and say his like, don't forget, Baijin came back from the dead to kill his enemy. Like it's a way
yeah,
less cool version of don't recite the old magic to me. It's just like, I remember the rest of the
yeah.
story
But Andon definitely, it's the moment in the Matrix when Neo stops the bullets,
fully.
where he's just like bending reality around him, like, whoa, yeah, I can finally see the code.
Yeah.
Uh,
And Andon's like giggling as he's killed. Like after Gaunt goes down, Andon just like he receives this return energy of like Gaunt and his death like into his body. And he is just like, I gotta expend this somehow. So he just starts like looking at people and like channeling a bit of the energy into them. And they're just dropping like those
yeah,
mice he killed during his pre-trials. And like he's
just
loving
killing
life.
dudes.
Mhm. I think at one point he's like screaming in pain, but also ecstasy.
Yeah, he's really going through it.
Yeah.
And then he passes out. He
Yeah.
just like keels over. And then in the next chapter, we find out that he went into a sicko mode coma.
Yeah, for 5 days or something like that.
And everyone's like, "Hey, Tiger, uh, you all right?" And
He's
Hilo is not dead. Because they kind of made it
Yeah.
seem like he might have died.
Yeah.
Thank God for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was worried that they might have killed him. And I was
Yeah,
like,
I kind of was too, to be honest.
you guys run out of characters if you kill Hilo.
Yeah, please. And then, like, when he wakes up, he's like, everything's different now. Nothing's ever going to be the same. All I want is more Jade. And he's like licking his lips and he's just like fiending really bad for more Jade and more murder, kind of. He's like, I
Yeah.
kind of
It's
really
like, I really loved
really
murdering.
like killing people. Wow. Could really use some more Jade right now.
Yeah, his
And
sicko
then
mode switch got broken, so it's always on.
yeah, the doctor comes in. He's like, it's okay. And like, just like turns up the narcotics and goes back to bed. And
Yeah.
finally he wakes up again and Hilo's in the room. And Hilo gives him all this good news. He's like, Nope took back all the territory it lost. Like, it's the best possible outcome, really.
Yeah,
Like,
it's get like that gave me cheap knockoff, like, we don't have time to explain it. Like, I'm running out of book space, so here you go. And you were there too, Toto? Kind of shit. Like, oh, and you were there, and you were there too.
Yeah.
Because they were just, like, everything was solved very quickly in 5 days. And I'm like, man, you got 2 more books.
Yeah.
You could have kept that going a little longer.
It seems like she being Fond du Lis is eager to get to like the larger scope of the war, like involving the other, and that makes sense because like there's only so much you can do with like one city and a bunch of like skirmishes.
Yeah,
I think.
And there's like, you can tell that this is very much a book about setting stages. Like, the book's not literally about setting stages, but the book itself is setting up the stage for a larger story.
Yeah. But Andon's like, oh my god, Hilo, something's wrong. I don't feel right. Something's like super off with me. And is like, or Hilo's like, yeah, my guy, you just took like the world's supply of Jade in 2 seconds, went into a power coma, and now you're having withdrawals. It's normal. Don't worry. We have you being carefully dosed with shine under the observation of Dr. True. And it's like, what do you mean shine? Like, he was so upset to find out that he's being dosed with shine, that the thing he hates most in the world and the thing that he had a panic attack over finding out Lan was taking. And the way that Hilo is being so cavalier about all of this makes Andon really anxious. He's like, I don't like what this is doing to me. I don't like how I feel right now. Why am I being, I never consented to be dosed with this drug, which, like, yeah, that's fair. Like, the way that Hilo is just he's trying to be reassuring in a way that is not reassuring to Andon. Like, it's making things way worse for him.
And Hilo kind of picks up on that, and he's like, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. Why don't you, big guy, get better, okay? I'll be outside. Because he like immediately, like, he goes, okay, well, you'll be good soon, and I'll see you soon, okay? You don't worry your little head about it.
Yeah.
And Andon's just like, okay, I feel better.
Yeah, he goes to sleep kind of feeling weird. He's like, I'm a very Jade sensitive boy. And I don't like how I feel about all of this. But he was like, you're graduating soon. You'll be better before graduation.
And then graduation time. Chapter 56. It's Andon's, like, medal ceremony at the end of Star Wars.
Yep.
Where the master of the academy is like, oh no, you go up last because you're the specialist of boys. And apparently rumor of his sicko mode spread far and wide. Everybody's like, oh, did you hear about what he went full sicko mode, dude? And he's like, that makes him uncomfortable.
Everything makes him uncomfortable.
Yeah, true. He does something so super dope as, like, laughing maniacally as he like slowly moves out of the way of something to like, come on, that's the coolest shit ever, and you're feeling weird about it? Come on.
The only way he wouldn't feel weird is if people were like berating him and yelling
Spitting
at
on him.
him, telling him he's a piece of shit. He's like, finally, people see me for what I am. Like, that's when he would be at most like at peace, finally, I
Yeah.
think.
But Andon, this chapter really bugged, of all the chapters this time, this chapter bugged the shit out of me. Because it is so much longer than it needed to be. We get, like, after they establish the ceremony, and the master is like, you come up last because you did the very bestest job and you're super cool now. He's like, oh, okay. And then Andon goes into this monologue, this, like, retreating into his mind's eye, essentially stating that he's got a darkness inside him now. And things are different.
Yeah.
And as the ceremony goes, they start with the people who quit and are going to become like the penitents or whatever. People who essentially like washed out. They still get a graduation ceremony.
Wait, you think they're washed out?
That's what they made it sound like.
I thought it was kind of just like they like different people kind of pledge their allegiance to different things and then they do the like jade handing out ceremony. And I feel like the people who get one jade stone
they
are
kinda
kind of the
washed
people
out.
who are washed out, yeah.
Like they go to such lengths to describe every aspect of the ceremony to the point where it's like,
Yeah.
we
Like,
get
don't
it.
care.
And then like that other guy, that hit Andon's crush goes up and gets his jade, and he's like, "What? He gave the oath? I thought he didn't want anything to do with his dad." And I was like, "Your dad's head being cut off can change a man."
Yeah, and he's like he starts projecting all his own feelings onto
Yeah, it
this
was kind of cringe.
Lot kid. I in my notes I just refer to him as like evil knife boy.
Yeah,
But he says the oath and Andon's like so sad for him. And it's
yeah,
like focus on yourself, Andon.
yeah. And this is when I was like, "Oh, Andon is going to wait until he's right up in front of everybody and be like, 'No, I don't want it.'" Watch. And then that's exactly what happens.
Mhm.
And Hilo's like, "What the fuck are you doing? You're embarrassing me and you're embarrassing your mother." And he, like, Andon storms off. It's a great dishonor. Everybody's
It's so
shocked.
embarrassing
Like,
for everyone.
it was like every high school movie where up on stage someone does something and the whole crowd's like,
It's like the prom queen is like, "No, I can't accept this."
yeah,
And then breaks the crown and throws it to the audience like
and
in Mean
storms
Girls.
off. And Hilo
Yeah.
chases after him and he's like, "Well, you better explain what the fuck you're doing right now, young man." And they have a little blow up,
Yeah.
which
And it's really dramatic in this.
I'm kind of on the side of Hilo of this one. Like, Andon is being
Same.
a petulant little brat.
Yeah, he's like he's very emotionally destabilized from his power coma and like Hilo is like, "What the fuck just happened?" And it's like, I'm too sensitive. I was never meant to have Jade." He's one of those people who I think is so worried about fulfilling the role he was supposed to fulfill, but not doing it well enough that
Yeah.
he would rather not even try. Like, never try to do the thing that he knows he wants to do and he knows is expected of him because then he can't disappoint anybody. And it's almost like the shame of saying no and walking away is somehow easier to tolerate than the shame of trying and failing.
He's also
he's like-
imagined in his mind that he's going to end up just like his mother, which has
Fully
never
like
been an issue up to just now when he went sicko mode and realized there's a darkness inside him. And it's like, bro, because he's like, I don't want, like, how do you live with killing other people? And it's like, I don't know, we just do, bro. He's like, I can't. I have a
I like
darkness
it too
inside
much.
of me.
Yeah, I don't want to unleash this monster that lives in my heart,
Yeah,
man.
and that's where in my notes I wrote, this is the jade of a killer, Hilo.
Yeah. Like Hilo sees Andon going sicko mode. He's like, "You're so beautiful."
Yeah. No.
But he gets upset at Hilo and he gets really, really mean here. He's like, "Hilo, I don't like what you're turning me into. A weapon." And Hilo's like, "What the fuck? Like, I would never do that. You're my brother."
Never mind,
He's
you're
like
called a
being
fist.
yeah, he's like being powerful makes you a target, being a call makes you a target. But a Greenbone does not turn his back on his family or his clan. And Shay tries to intervene. She's like, "No, Hilo, like
Let him
this is
go.
this is Andon's choice." And then Hilo is like, "Get out of my sight, I never want to see you again."
Yeah, I would have done the same thing, honestly.
Yeah, and Andon just essentially runs away crying. He's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, bye forever."
Full Napoleon Dynamite floppy arms.
Yeah.
But after that, the next chapter is...
Well, he runs to the graveyard
Oh, that's right.
before the chapter ends. He has to have his emo moment.
I stopped paying attention because when he ran to the
fair.
graveyard, I was like, "Get over yourself. Lon's dead. He
Yeah,
can't
he, like,
help
throws-
you."
He throws himself on Lon's grave, sobbing, and he's
Oh
probably
my
there for
God.
minutes or hours or days. And
Oh, that's
Shay
right.
shows
Shay
up,
turns up with an
and
umbrella.
she's like, "He was always proud of you. Like he's proud of you. I just know."
I can tell. I can tell because I know that's exactly what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But the next chapter, Shay gets a letter from Doru, and it's the dumbest letter. Like, it made me laugh because it's essentially him going, "Better luck next time, Gadget."
But I loved how he signed off on the letter when he signed it with fond regrets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm saving that and I'm going to use that in every work email when someone's asking me to do something out of project scope and I turn them down.
Sorry,
I can't
no
wait.
can do. Fondest regrets. Bye-bye.
Fondest regrets.
And I think they go to the Twice Lucky to just hang out. It's like a family gathering, and fucking Coulson is there being an absolute pain in the ass. And I'm like, I'm so sick of this old fuck because he's causing trouble again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hate that they keep treating him like he's just the lovable old racist grandpa that you kind of tolerate.
Yeah.
Just kill him. Just push him down the stairs. No one will know.
Yeah, it's fine. Leave him outside overnight.
He'd
for
probably
a couple
respect
of nights.
you more if you did that. Just
Honestly.
kill him. And we find out that Mr. Une cut off his own ear as like an apology, like the Yakuza cut off their fingers.
Yeah.
And he delivered it to Hilo. Apparently just putting your hand on the box is a symbol of like, you're forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
And Shay is like, "Hey, since you're in the mood of forgiving, how about you forgive Andrew?" He's like, "Don't ever fucking say that name to me again."
Yeah.
But then they just kind of like, she tries to press him on it a little bit, and he just clams up. So she's like, "Okay, well, I'll try again later."
Yeah.
And
apparently when Shay left for Espenia, he wouldn't bring her up for 6 months.
he's a man
like he would ignore her.
of conviction, and I respect it. But that's kind of it. They talk about how, like, oh well, it's gonna be a lot of work to fix everything up and get back to the way things were. But I'm looking forward to it. I've got everybody on my side. The end.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the end, because in the epilogue, we find out that in my premonition, I said, "Oh, they're burying Lon with all his jade? There's no way that doesn't get stolen." And wouldn't you fucking know it, but that Barrow son of a bitch digs up his grave and steals his jade.
Well, he doesn't actually dig him up, but it's implied that he's going to. But, like, it's like almost the Voldemort moment of cracking open Dumbledore's coffin and getting his Elder Wand, but
Yeah, that's
he's
exactly what I
mostly
thought
just
of.
he's putting his ear to the ground. He's like, "I can feel the jade." And
Yeah.
he's just like with Moot there. But he doesn't have his like moment of like holding the jade up to the sky and the lightning cracks down. But
Or, you know,
it's
it really could
heavily
have done
implied
with
that he will.
a nice Voldemort yell as the mausoleum cracked open. It looked good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be the one thing that epilogue was missing for sure.
Yeah. But that's it. Hand in Steel
Yeah, we
or
finished it.
Barrow, that cocksucker. I am so pissed that he's gonna make it into the second book, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad he is.
I'm not.
Because it's gonna be so much sweeter when he finally gets the shit murdered out of him.
Well, hopefully. We can only hope.
Yeah, hopefully. But hey, everybody, what do you say we pick a new book, huh? Since it's that time.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? I lost it. There it is. Let's bring it up and we can look at the options. As you can see, on this list we've got Jade War by Fonda Lee, the sequel to the book we just read. We've also got Jade War by Fonda Lee. I heard it's pretty good. The other three are also Jade War. So let's give it a spin and see what book we're reading this time.
It's gonna be a really shocking outcome, I think.
Oh. Who would have thought? We're reading Jade War, the sequel.
Wow.
It's the first time that we've ever done a sequel, but we figured, you know, we enjoyed this one so much, why not keep going?
It's earned a sequel read, I think, because I mean, if not now, when?
Yeah. Because it's always weird to come back and be like, hey, remember that time we read Jade City? Well, we're reading the next one 2 years later.
I know, and like I really prefer to engage with a series as a whole thing instead of, because like when I come back to it after a while, I feel compelled to reread because then I want to know all the context before going into the next book. Like I used to do this with Harry Potter all the time. I would reread every Harry Potter book before the next one came out. So I've read the first book a lot of times. And now I don't. I won't need to reread Jade City, even though I would. It's a very good book, and I would definitely reread it. But
yeah, all of you guys should read it too.
I didn't know she is a Canadian author.
Really?
She now lives in Portland, in the States, but she's originally Canadian.
Culture trader.
Which is kind of fun. Well, like Vancouver and Portland are pretty similar, but I actually think she's from Quebec.
Anyway, you guys, that's it. That's all we've got. Thank you so much for watching. This will be up on the channel next week, probably. And we'll see you next time for more of the Greenbone Saga.
Yeah. Saga.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.